Hi. So this is Aslihan Caroupapoullé. Can I just close that?
You can click on the top right.
Okay. So as Christoph mentioned, that I started my PhD project. It's not PhD actually. It started with my master's project here in Kingston University, and we were proposing a counter proposal for Tesco site, and then it kind of developed into a PhD project after that. So my current title is Belper Heritage, between heritage and development, the case of Belper. So Belper is a part of Derwent Valley Mills World Heritage Site. And as you can see, it's a quite agricultural landscape. So mills are inscribed into the list because of two reasons. First, it was the first time in history this kind of large-scale factory buildings were inserted in an agricultural landscape. And the second and the most important is that implementation of this building resulted in the need for workers, houses for workers and the managers and other kind of sectors, and then it created these first industrial towns. And this is Belper Mill Complex. You can see that between the late 1700s until the mid 1900s, the Derwent Valley has been developed, starting from the Mason Mill on the top. You can see it on the left image map, until Derby Silk Mill. This is like 21 kilometers topography articulated by the river Derwent. So throughout these years, the whole valley was developed by the industrialists, basically, created these towns out of nothing. Here we can see Belper East Mill, which is the latest edition. It's been built in the 1912. But then on the first image on the left, the further left building is the North Mill. Once upon a time, this was one of the tallest buildings in the world. Actually, it was the second largest skyscraper in the world. And around this time, Belper's population was 20,000 people, and it was I think it was the largest town in the United Kingdom as well. And the whole town is developed by Richard Arkwright, which is the industrialist, and Jedediah Strutt, which is the patrons of the Belper, and they tried different kind of terrace houses in the site. So this is one of the first places that this typology has been tried according to the needs of the people. So they were trying one type, and then if it doesn't work, they were expanding it or reducing the the square meters. And also they started adding allotments for people because they needed food after a while. And here we can see the whole town. The S shape is the river Derwent, and you can see how industrialization kind of occurred on the landscape. And on the right side, we see the agricultural land. And this really defines the character of Belper. But currently, manufacturing tradition has stopped. In fact, the last mill was closed in 2019. It's been bought by a Chinese company, and then in a few years, then it's been closed down. So the town is currently struggling to find a new significance, because this was the town basically created with the aim of providing housing and life for the workers there, but now it turned out to be almost a dormitory town, and it's not good. And what happened is that in 2009, Tesco bought majority of the land, which I will show in the previous slides, but here we can see that how this kind of deindustrialization started. So the middle photograph is the Thornston building. It was a chocolate factory, but then it's been burned down, then never been repaired again. It's been left like that. And then at the bottom, we see like the gaps created by absence of the garages because all the warehouses and garages has been closed down. This is Derwent Street, which is the street connecting Belper Meadows with the Belper town. So basically the meadows, which is this green area on the map, has been forgotten. So nobody is going down to the meadows. And also there's another reason for that, it's floodplains. But before there was all these mills and factories and garages there, but now they're all gone. But there's like their ghosts still remaining, which is like roughly the 25% of the town's core. And that's again some photographs. So I believe that, Belper is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and there's another question of UNESCO and how how town is trying to kind of trying to keep this identity. But UNESCO has 39 protected views. So with these views, you cannot play with the heights or the shapes of the building. You need to be very careful of what you are proposing. And I believe that we can use towns this identity to kind of create new designs that kind of binds its history with the future. But usually the proposal, as I mentioned before, that has been proposed for the land is mainly piecemeal. There's a piecemeal design approach. You can see on the top left that the land that has been bought by Tesco, and it's been like drawn with a red line. And whatever they design is, they just look inside this circle that they created. They don't care about what's happening beyond it. As you can see from the map on the right, it's a majority of the town center that has been bought by Tesco, and there was a big uproar by the people. They hated the idea because Tesco was trying to propose a very big shopping mall, and it was going to kind of erase the town center and all the buildings there, all the shops and other establishments. And there was a big war between Tesco and the town. It went for a few years, and finally town people won. They canceled the plans, but now the land is owned by Tesco, which gave them the freedom to do whatever they want. But the first thing that they did is they have their own child companies, their parent-child company, and they gave it to one of their child companies, which is called Spanfield or something like that. I forgot the name now. And again, what they did is to take the land and just like chuck some plans in it and try to work with it basically. And I think this is the worst thing that you can do for areas like that, because we are part of this kind of web of situations, and we live in this land basically. So we need to kind of know how to work with it. As Sigfrid Gideon said, that architecture is a product of its time and its place. So we need to kind of act this way. So we can consider architecture as an evolving process rather than just like one finished museum product that we would just like take care of. And then there's a question of like, how do you use history? How do you reference it to the history? How do you make it part of your design? So what I propose is an approach called palimpsestic approach. So it has been used many times. It's overused word, but the way that I'm using it is that, as I mentioned earlier, that I think that this land is a kind of a web, a web of situations. There are a lot of things happening, and when you design something, you cannot ignore what is there. So you are part of what is there. Many cities like Rome, Berlin has been designed that way. That they are really the successful examples. If you look at Rome's plan, you would see that none of the buildings are bragging that they are just themselves, but they are trying to being a part of this this what is going on there basically. So there are semi-public places, there are public places, there are private places, but they all work together. So I'm not saying that you need to be like a soldier in an army and be boring or whatever. I'm saying totally opposite. You need to be expressive, you need to express yourself, but you cannot ignore people around you when you are expressing yourself. Here we can see two images from Belper Meadows. You can see that even if you try to ignore, you are always part of this structure going on around you, and it's always constantly evolving. And we can see the footpaths from the 1900s there. We can see the allotments. They are still there, like you can see the lines, the palimpsest basically. So I started looking at the landscape that way. I did a historical research. So here on top, I looked at the chimneys to see like where the production was going on. And at the bottom, you see the allotments again. I mentioned earlier that they were kind of growing their own foods and vegetables. I put different images together, superimpose them to see what has changed in the landscape. And then walked on the streets, draw the street profiles, you know, put all the new images together to see again what is changing when you walk, when you experience the place. So my idea is, it kind of is based on different things, like you have to have your lived experiences, but you have to have special and historical research, but also the other ideas. Because the other ideas, it can be an image, it can be a photograph, it can be an architectural building, is a part, you are part of that basically. It has been kind of done with the time. Like Gadamer says that we are part of our own epoch. So you need to kind of notice who you are and look back and forward to see what's going on. So it's like bringing different kind of ideas together basically. And first I started saying, how can I kind of, because this is a PhD project, how can I kind of make this more explicit? How can I demonstrate that it's not easy? And I didn't know what I was doing. So I just kind of chunked everything together on a big paper to see the connections in my head, because this is important, you know. You are educated because you're an architect to do that. But how do you propose, how do you kind of conceptualize that basically? So this is my table. This I noticed. This is kind of the paper was result of that basically. So without noticing, you kind of go there with your own ideas. You walk on the streets, and then you come back home. You are a different person, and then it reminds you of somebody else's drawing or somebody else's architecture, and then you say, "Oh, wouldn't it be nice to have this person's drawing there?" And then you just edit there to see what's going on basically. It's a collage. So this is not my original idea. It has been used many times by different artists. This is Marcel Proust, Marcel Duchamp, his valise, because here he kind of, you can see the reproductions of other artists and his original work, and his drawing sketches or photographs from elsewhere. He just collects and creates the kind of his own art piece. So now he used different ideas, but then he compiled them to make something, and it became his own. So this is what we call creative translation. So creativity comes that way. You look around and then you translate it. This idea has been tried by the surrealists as well, and cubists and so on. You can see Max Ernst's again work. On top, he kind of darkens some of the illustration just to pick up the ideas that he needs. And then he adds his own sketches, he adds some photographs and other things, writings, and then it becomes his own work basically. In architecture, we see that in Dennis Laston's building and Gottfried Bern's building as well. They take the history as a reference, but they make it their own. So it's still appropriate to the site, but it's very unique. It's beautiful. So this is the idea that I'm working on. I just chunk all the whatever in my head inside the paper without thinking about any style or anything, just to understand what I'm doing or what I'm seeing, to kind of translate it basically. I started making collages. For example, on the left we see the Tedious painting, the Kaaba Gate, and then on the right we see that Matisse took what he sees, made it his, and then I just removed the middle what Matisse sees, and then I just put my own work in the middle of it, because this is the kind of connection that you want to get, you know, you want to part of what is there. Again, this is Mantegna's frescoes that he kind of created to connect with the outside world and also expand his vision. So I took his fresco idea and then tried collages to kind of chunk other buildings, the architectural buildings, and my own drawings together to create the feeling. So it's an approach. It's not a historist anything. It's an approach. It has been tried in the past by Baroque artists. It's been tried by Cubists. So this is not a style. This is an approach that I'm trying to talk about. So here, for example, Mantegna's painting on the left. So if you look at the painting, what you see is something happening in the foreground, but in the background, there is a will to connect with the city, because they are proud of it. They want to part of it. So I just took Jean Nouvel's pavilion, and I took some Derwent Valley flooded land and the Mantegna's painting, and then make my collage basically to create the same kind of connection. So this is my last slide. Currently, I'm on my last writing up phase, and yeah, when I'm hoping to finish in a year, hopefully, in a few months. Yeah, that's all.